Today we're going to talk about developing patience. Ṣabr. What is Ṣabr? What is this patience? And it's more than just waiting. It's about enduring. Because within our cultural context, it means how do we stay grounded in hardship, not giving up your peace, trusting in timing, and even when the path is unclear. What does this, that's what Ṣabr is all those things. That's an endurement through, and we come from a people of big dignity and faith. And so it's more than just patience, like waiting in line at the grocery store. That the patience that we're talking about here is enduring faith within you. That no matter what you want to do in your life, no matter what your path is, that you're going to stay grounded through the challenges, and you're going to assess what that is for you. Not giving up your inner peace, even though externally there may be so much chaos or people pushing back on you and saying, don't do this. This is a dumb idea. It's about you staying present to your own path from a place of peace, not from others' chaos. And one of the hardest things I know for me is trusting in the timing, because many times if you have, I want it and I want it now, I want to do it now. And when you're not trusting the timing of things, because many times things happen exactly when they need to happen and when you're ready. And a lot of times you may think you're ready, but the universe, whatever you want to call it, may have other plans. And how do you trust that? So there's a phrase fil Arabi, and I hope I say it right, El sabr miftah al faraj. And patience is the key to relief. Now, I say to myself, I say to my clients, I say to my family members, if you can really get good at patience, it absolutely can be your superpower for how you move forward in life. But patience isn't glamorous. Everyone says, oh, I have to be patient. Well, for you to say patient, it's for you to reframe that for yourself. That patience does offer relief. It does offer, when you get good at it, it will give you a presence of mind that I can't quite articulate because you have to go through the process. And if you keep becoming impatient and if you keep forcing things, you're never going to know what that relief feels like. So in all faiths, we are taught the value of patience. I was taught patience, not nice things. I was told, Inti tawli rohek. That's what I was told. It was always very aggressive around not teaching me patience, how to relax, how to stay grounded. It was always like, tawli rohek, calm down, da, da, da. And that only exacerbated my anxiety. I don't know if you guys ever had that. My teta would hit her head and she goes, yay, Allah ya'tini al-sabr. So for me, patience was always tied to hysteria, aggressiveness. Patience was not equated with calm and grounding. Okay. So again, take a look at for yourself what that is. Now, the difference between passive waiting and active endurance. So what does that mean? Passive waiting, which is what most people do when it comes to patience, is doing nothing while expecting time and others to solve the problem. Because if we are really honest with ourselves and being radically accountable, one thing is most people passively wait where life is setting the tone for you versus you setting the tone for your life. So when you're passively waiting for a problem to be solved. It drains your energy. It leads you to frustration and helplessness. Your mindset, I'll just wait and see what happens. This is so common in our culture. Tayyib, we'll let God figure it out. We will see what happens. Inshallah. These things. That's a passive waiting. An example is waiting for life circumstances or people to change without you taking any steps for yourself. Okay? So, are you somebody that passively waits in your own life? Now, be honest with yourself. There's no judgment here at all. It's about asking yourself, am I just allowing things to kind of happen? Are there things that I can do, which is moving us into active endurance, where choosing patience while staying engaged and grounded in purpose? You're saying, I'm going to keep doing the things like Community for International Arab. How many times did I tell Mira, that's it, I don't want to do this anymore, khalas, faka'at, I'm done. And she would say, let's just keep doing the things. Let's just keep going. Let's just keep moving forward. And then at that point in doing the things, I said, okay, let me choose to be patient to the process. And it feels, the energy that comes from that is, it's empowering when you can move through those blocks within you, and you need people to help you through that. It's very difficult to move through that alone. That it's very empowering because it builds resilience, it builds strength. I told her just this morning, 20 years I've been wanting to do this. 20 years I started and stopped. Because every time that voice came, khalas badish sawiha, I stopped. But in leaning into the patience, and it's in continuing to do the work even when you don't want to, right? You want to work out, you want to get in shape. Yeah, working out is a lot of work. And you may not be patient with the progress of the shifting in your body, yet it's in engaging and staying grounded in, my purpose is overall health and wellness. Now, if you could take that to different things, because the mindset is, and this is key for everyone here, especially within our cultural context, I can't rush this. I cannot tell you, we are always in a rush, and I'll explain why a little later. I cannot rush this. Your mindset is slow down even more, because it's about preparing. Preparing your body, preparing your mind, preparing your soul, your being for this growth that you are in, so that when you trust this process and when you actually have it, you're going to appreciate it and you're going to keep it. Because there are people with a lot of wealth who've achieved it. They did all this active stuff, yet in them, they are broken. There are people surrounded by thousands of people, and yet they still feel so alone. There are famous people who feel profoundly insecure in their craft. So active endurance is not just about doing the things. It is about empowering yourself to say, I can't rush this. When I do manifest and bring this thing into my life, I want to make sure I'm in my wholeness in keeping it. Okay? So, everyone, you get passive waiting, active endurance. Where are you in which bucket? Okay? Again, no judgment. There's always opportunities for growth. So, why does patience matter? Okay? We have all these religious phrases, all these mantras around patience, yet we're in a world that literally does not embody any of that. Because of our fast-paced world and within our cultural context, we have very complex family systems. Did you hear that? Very complex family systems. And our impatience often comes from our pressure to succeed or maintain family honor. Maybe your family may be struggling in your home country, and you have this pressure to succeed in that. Two more points: balancing two cultures and expectations. That also requires a lot of patience. And then you may not have patience because emotional fatigue comes from these unspoken responsibilities. So ask yourself, where does my impatience come from? Is it the pressure to succeed and maintain family honor? Is it balancing two cultures and expectations? Or am I just emotionally fatigued from all these unspoken responsibilities? I think it's very important that practicing patience is not weakness. Do you guys hear that? Practicing patience is not a weakness, because I think sometimes we equate calmness and slowing down with weakness. Now, we need to shift that mindset within our culture. It's a form of strength, faith, and emotional regulation does not mean weakness. All right. So let's acknowledge our cultural context around patience, that it's not necessarily an individual trait. Many times we weren't taught patience. Most of us had modeling of impatience. And when in your life were you patient? When did Ṣabr come into, and you were like, wow, I was really patient in that moment? And can you remember those moments, right? And so patience, again, is not an individual trait. It's usually tied to our community, the rhythm, the faith, and our survival. Now, many of our parents, we talk about this generational trauma. This is that enduring, the dignity, the faith. When they were enduring what they were enduring in their home countries, and then they immigrated to their new country that they came to, they had to do things fast. They had to make money. They had to create a home. They had to learn a language. They had to adapt to whatever culture they were in, and they had to make friends, and they had to create community. It was like this constantly, because that came from survival. And so we have to remember that, and there was a rush to marry the kids and rush to have children. There was always this rhythm to which many of us were raised in this cultural context. And so we want to start, I know it's going to sound counterintuitive, but we want to start normalizing impatience as a response to high expectations and pressure, not a flaw. I know for myself, excuse me, I beat myself up for my lack of patience. I still do. Because, and then as I was preparing for this live, I said, well, think about all the survival of our family. That we didn't have they didn't have the luxury to be patient, to ground themselves and go with the flow, to just allow the universe to create for them. They didn't have that. And so I want us to normalize that our impatience is really about our desire to create the life that we were meant to live. But because that was disrupted by wars, migration, what else? I mean, the plethora of things, genocide. I mean, gosh, the list goes on and on and on of our communities constantly witnessing all this strife. And then we become impatient because maybe we want to elevate our community or we want to give money to our families. So let's reframe. If you're impatient, it's only because you have a desire to move forward for yourself and for your family, and there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? Our communities, also, whether it's family expectations, success, or appearances, you have to remember any slowing down, and I hear this a lot from clients, and even it took a long time, practice. Any slowing down felt extremely uncomfortable, not just uncomfortable, extremely uncomfortable, because you slow down. It's like, oh, you're lazy. You're not progressing fast enough. So you have to remember that even sometimes we were shamed that it could be disrespectful. Your family may say, you're not doing enough. You're not doing something fast enough. You're disrespecting us. You're disrespecting the community. And it's actually a strength. You slowing down is giving your nervous system an opportunity to move forward mindfully and from a grounded place. But yet your nervous system may be the very thing that's driving you because of those core beliefs of, I have to get things done. I have to get things done because my self-worth is tied to how much I'm doing. Do you guys see that? So this idea of being versus doing within our culture, we're constantly doing. But how often are we being in a state of presence to say, what changes do I want to make in my life? What changes need to be made in my life? Where am I at with those changes? And then we're just doing that. We're not even mindfully thinking about it because we're so impatient. And again, it's not a flaw. It's a strength to slow down. And your impatience is, let's reframe that to something like, oh, I have this within me to do better, to be better. All right. Now, no matter the faith, we want to reframe patience as spiritual and cultural strength. It's that steadfastness that our ancestors, I'd like us to go back to that steadfastness of the value of Ṣabr, the endurance of what our ancestors, they connected this practice to identity rather than self-blame. And I know through all the stuff that's happened throughout the decades that we've lost that. So I'd like us to go back to our ancestors. They were the essence of Ṣabr. This is what they embodied as they built great things. Can we go back to that? And they were more connected to the land, more connected to nature, more connected in community. And we've lost that. We've allowed our communities to move towards things that are not at the crux of who we are, the light of who we are as Arab. So patience does not mean silence, it means steady faith. Because Mita and I talked about it earlier today that just because someone is silent or it doesn't mean they're patient. Okay? Faith is in action. That God, if we're going to go with God, and if you're an atheist, that's okay. Your higher self, whatever, doesn't matter. That the story about the guy on the boat and he's on top of his roof as there's a flood. And then he's praying. He goes, God, save me. God, save me. And then a boat goes by. Hey, come in. We're going to come in. He goes, no, God's going to save me. Then the helicopter comes. And the water keeps going, and the guy, they say, come, and then he says, no, God is going to save me, and then he dies, and then God says, he goes, God, why have you forsaken me? He goes, well, I sent you a boat and an airplane. So is God sending you lifelines, and you're not taking them because of this? How did I get on? How did I totally derail myself? But you see where I'm going with that, you guys? That in your patience, there may be earth angels around you. There may be people wanting to help you. But are you taking that action to embrace it? Ṣabr is definitely not waiting. It's enduring with dignity. Now, what does dignity mean? Sometimes life hands us a whole bunch of crap, bad stuff. And you're saying, how can I stay grounded in this and knowing who I am. Not, and sometimes we act in ways because we're not patient. We may yell at people. We may harm people as a result of we may cheat people as a result of our lack of patience. Just because you're silent about it doesn't mean it's not an energy that's coming back at you. So be really careful with how you're moving in the world, particularly around patience. So how do we practice regulated pauses in family dynamics? Now, it's so important to the power of the pause. Now, before you go into any family gathering, you want to assess, where's my patience level? Where am I at? If you're hungry, now I know we stay starving because we want to eat all the good foods at the family house. Yeah, no, your blood sugar goes down. Eat a little bit before you go in. Yeah, because that can affect your patient level. There's so many heated discussions about all kinds of stuff, right? Everybody has an opinion. Nobody's listening to one another. So there's like these heated discussions around, name the topic. Could be fruit, and somebody will argue about it. You have to remember that you want to stay grounded in that with the power of the pause, especially between the generations. Slow yourself. Don't expect the elders to change. Just the power of the pause. You want to breathe with intention, taking a slow inhale before replying. That is probably one of the hardest techniques. Even when you're feeling criticized, even when they're throwing shade at you, even when they're beniku, like, they do this little, and you're like all calm, cool, and collected. And the more grounded you are, sometimes the more they like to nick because they want to see a reaction from you. And then you snap, and then you're like, why did I do that? It's going to be important for you to get really good at practicing your breathing. No matter what they say, how do you create distance between what they're telling you and who you are? And then the physical grounding. Sometimes just pressing your feet on the floor, okay? Pressing your feet on the floor is a type of grounding. Sometimes I like to do some do some massage. So like while they're talking, I will just like gently massage my hands. My great grandmother used to do that. Yeah, Sithi, she used to do that. I used to wonder why she was doing that. She was grounding herself in the midst of chaos. And she would do this. So it could be you want to do breathing with intention, physical grounding. And this is where, for those of you that are of faith, you use faith-based grounding in those micro moments of regulation. So sometimes you may say a dua or a prayer and say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. The courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that serenity prayer is really important. So find your prayer, find your grounding through your own faith. One of the things around patience that I will encourage everybody to read is the story of the farmer and the palm tree. Now, I won't read it here because everyone's attention spans are pretty low. I say that lovingly. But go read the story of the farmer and the palm tree. And it's a beautiful story about patience, Ṣabr. Again, it's about trusting what you nurture will bear fruit in its time. Okay? Remembering, can you trust that what you're doing is going to bear fruit? And a lot of times we don't trust that because we want to control outcomes. We want to control everything. Okay? So that story is a beautiful story. It's a wonderful story. Our ancestors were wonderful storytellers. They used cultural metaphors. Again, can we go back to our ancestral practices of storytelling? And this is a story I call upon all the time when I'm losing faith, when I'm losing patience, that I said, yes, you may not be, whatever you're creating may take time, and it's not just for you, but it's for others. Developing patience begins with practice and awareness. And we cannot do that when we don't create stillness in our life. So, one thing I'll encourage each and every one of you to do is 5 minutes of stillness. No phones, no screens, no distractions, no book, no hockey, no nothing. Just go somewhere where you have 5 minutes of stillness. Now, that's going to be excruciating for some of you, because when you're still, the things are going to come up within you, the fears, the shame, the guilt, the ruminations are going to be very intense. And that's where you pause and you practice your breathing. You just breathe through it. Now, I know it sounds very simple, yet it's in the stillness and in the breath that you will find that patience within you. So are you going to commit and have the discipline to do this daily? And sometimes, dare I say, multiple times a day. So breath, pause before responding. We're always fast. So before a demand, so we've got the stillness. Now when you're out in the real world, stop responding so fast. Unless it's an emergency, unless someone's, dying, actively dying, not saying they're dying, you want to slow down. Before you respond, you want to ask yourself, develop that patience, that skill of, do I need to respond? How do I want to respond? What does this respond? What does their demand on me mean to me? So do some self-reflection. That would be technique number 2. Pause, the 3-second rule before replying. I usually say for Arab, it's a 16-second rule. 3 seconds will be like 1, 2, 3, right? You want to slow down. Maybe count to 16. Why 16? I don't know. It's a random number. Choose your number. It doesn't matter, right? So that would be technique number 2. Pause before responding. The other one, again, faith-based anchoring. Now, if you're atheist, that's okay. Find the words. But if you do have faith, no matter your faith, a silent verse, a prayer. When the anger starts to arise within you, or the fear starts to arise, the moment you feel that in your body, most Arab, myself included, we override that feeling with, oh, it's me, it's my fault, I'm the problem. No, slow down, pause before responding. And then you want to say a short verse or a short prayer, and you say, okay, let me not internalize it. Let me externalize this emotion a little bit and say, is it about the other person? Is there something happening? Look at the facts of what's in front of you. But because we go from an emotional response, because this is what we were taught and modeled, it's going to be important. You develop this body-mind connection by saying, I feel it in my body. You want to address it sooner than later. Do not override it. The moment you feel irritated, you're like, oh, I'm irritated. You want to stop? Take a look. Why am I irritated? Maybe you don't like somebody's face. There's nothing wrong with that. But to say, why don't I like that somebody's face? And you go through the cognitive process of going, oh, they remind me of that kid that bullied me when I was like 9. Well, I don't need to respond so harshly to that person. They're not that bully when I was 9. They're them. So then you can slow yourself down and find that neutrality. Find your grounding. Which leads me to embodied grounding. That technique I learned by pressing your fingertips or pressing your feet on the floor. Feeling your feet on the floor, that grounding, and then slowing down your pace. I was telling my cousins, we would laugh. I'm like, why are we always running? Like, we're always running somewhere. Like, we're just like, yalla, keep moving. At least in my family context. And I'm like, can we just slow down? So sometimes when you find yourself jetty, hick, you're like this, bah, 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 you want to slow your walking pace down. Or if you're on your computer and you're doing this and doing that and washing dishes and da, 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 or let's say you're working on a project for all my software engineers, right? If you're just working on multiple things, slow down. Take a minute, just slow down. You'll get to everything, I promise you. But you got to slow down. To give your nervous system this grounding to say, am I getting revved up? Is there a reason? Did I drink water? Did I eat? Did I go to the bathroom? Did I get enough sleep? And you do an assessment. Did I connect with my loved ones? Am I feeling isolated? So in that embodied grounding of like pressure point, massage, these things that ground you, I don't know what that is for you. Painting, writing, you will be able to assess for yourself when your nervous system gets revved up, which leads to this lack of patience. Any questions that anyone has on any of the techniques I talked about? So there were 4. Grounding through breath, and you can go online. There's thousands of grounding through breath exercise. Find the one that really resonates with you. Number 2, pause before responding, the power of the pause. So using that count to 16, focus on something else in the room before you respond, especially in conflictual or high intensity interactions. Number 3, faith-based anchoring. No matter your faith, sometimes that serenity prayer, a verse that called to you, a prayer that brought you peace, again, that ventral part of your nervous system, find it and slow down with that. Really, really slow down. Sometimes when I'm in these situations, I ask God, because I'm a woman of faith, I ask God, I said, God, please give me strength to stay present so that I don't respond in a way that's not in your light. Because I can come at people pretty harshly. And it took me years, decades, still working on it, not to respond fast, but to say, God, please give me the strength so I could speak from your voice, from your peace, not from my conflict. And every time I've done that, when you anchor in your faith, that light, because we're never abandoned, that light, that the angels, the God, whatever you want to call it, will whisper in your ear, I got you. But you have to be open to listening and to slowing yourself down, because if your body is hick, you're going to be like that guy on the roof when there's a flood and the boat comes and the airplane comes and you're missing the messages. And number 4, embodied grounding. Pressing, you want to physically get your body grounded. So for those of you that cross your legs, or those of you that kind of contort your bodies, which I do, you want to sit upright, put your shoulders back, right? Elongate yourself. You want to bring everything up and ground your feet on the floor. Or sometimes you want to ground through a tree, or ground through a stone, or ground through something. Find your grounding. And it's a physical object. Sometimes that could be really helpful if you're going into a meeting and you're nervous, you're going into a family situation that you're like, oh, Auntie's going to be, so harsh towards me. Sometimes bring that little object. We have so many things in our culture that can bring you that physical grounding. So again, find that grounding. Find those objects. Okay? So those are the top 4 things. On that note, I wanted to say thank you to each and every one of you for being on the live, for being patient, for giving yourself this time. Practice, discipline, commitment. If you commit to yourself daily to doing the breathing, the pause, the faith-based anchoring, and the embodied grounding, you will start to develop your patience. And then the more you can do that, again, it's a superpower, because there's nothing more empowering than when you can go into a situation and say, I was so patient, I was so clear, and that builds confidence. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to build is patience with one another, compassion for one another, empathy, and that brings unity. That will bring us closer together. The more patient we are with ourselves, the more patient we can be with others. And in this patience, we will be able to see one another through the eyes of a higher consciousness that we've lost in our world. So, nawar, the light in me sees the light in you. And I wish you all the very best. And I'll see you next week on Wadih Wednesday, where we'll have another topic to talk about. And enjoy whatever you decide to do. Find your patience. I wish you guys the best. Take care.